Hello everyone, this is Deonslow Cole and this is my video review for databases. And a topic that I pulled out that I think a lot of us as up-and-coming developers we should do is really kind of focus on some of the things as far as our mistakes and minimizing as many mistakes as possible. I found this article by Lewis Davidson, been in the IT industry for 15 years. He's a volunteer for the Professional Association for SQL Server working in their special interest groups. And he wrote this article called 10 Common Database Design Mistakes. It's a very good article as far as making sure we keep in mind. He wrote this article in mindset of himself. So some of the things he did when he was starting out and some of the things he may still do, he tried to keep in context as far as when he's developing a database. I know this article was written back in 2007, but it's still kind of relevant to what we do as developers. So I kind of pulled out some things I thought would make sense for us as up-and-coming developers into this field as we move forward and things we should think about. Here's the website. It's on simpletalk.com, SQL databases. You can copy it and load it and read the article also. One thing he pointed out was that poor design / planning is a common mistake that people make. And he starts out by saying, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there, which is true because as we develop our databases, we want to think that a good database is built with forethought and proper care, and the attention is given to the needs of the data that will inhabit it, cannot be tossed together in some sort of reverse implosion. Pretty much taking the time out to make sure that we design our database and we make sure that we're putting our information in a way that it's going to work and perform exactly how we want it to be. So that way it decreases the likelihood that our product at the end will not work and we have to go back and do more designing and reprogramming and redoing everything just to kind of make it work on our own. Second thing I found that was good was we've talked about normalization. That he says another mistake is ignoring normalization. And as we know, databases, normalization is a process of organizing the columns and tables of a relational database to minimize data redundancy. And that's kind of special for us as we learn to kind of break our information down into different tables so that each one has its own value. It's understandable. It knows what table it is. And we're able to go back and reference points for the database, and we know how to pull and parse information in so that we can make our database run as fast as possible and perform as best as we possibly can. Another common mistake that's done is that poor naming standards. And this first one is a very good one. Is names, while a personal choice, are the first and most important line of documentation for your application. The names you choose are not just to enable you to identify the purpose of an object, but to allow all future programmers, users, and so on to quickly and easily understand how a component part of your database was intended to be used and what the data stores. As a developer, you should rely on being able to determine that a table name is a table name by context in the code or tool and present to the users clear, simple, descriptive names such as customer and address. And it's very important that we do that. So as we are using our databases, someone comes along and they're looking at our database, they're able to distinguish what is what, where it's supposed to be. And if we use and explain in our statements, they can see where it's coming from and know how the whole database is working together. The third line, do not use spaces and quoted identifier and object names. You should avoid column names such as part number or in Microsoft style, part number, therefore requiring users to include these spaces and identifiers in their code. The acceptable alternatives would be part underscore number, or part number altogether. Consistency is the key. If you choose part number, then that's fine as long as the column containing the invoice number is called invoice number. So making sure that everything is relatable and making sure that names are understandable as we move forward. Another little mistake that's done a lot of times is the lack of documentation. And it goes back to naming our objects and columns and so on so that we can make clear to anyone that's using our database as modeling. They can understand what's happening. They know where the information is coming from. They're able to go to that table they want to get to and pull that information, know exactly what's in there with no problems, and it's clear, it's understandable. One is back to normalization, that having a table that holds all the domain values. This is kind of where we have to make sure we remember to break our table down so we can have a better performance. We don't want to put everything in one table. We want to make sure we break it down enough to where we can go and get different information, make our tables relatable, and have good relationship values to different tables as we create our database. And one last thing that I found very interesting is lack of testing. It's kind of hard to say that people don't test, but in crunch time, it says too many database systems get tested like a car, with just a little bit of poking around to see if individual queries and modules work. The first real test in production and attempt to do real work. Initially, major bugs come to thick and fast, especially performance related ones. For the first time, you have tried to pull a full production set of users, background processes, workflow processes, system maintenance routines, ETL, etc. It's on your own system launch day. You are extremely likely to discover that you have not anticipated all of the locking issues that might be caused by users creating data while others are reading it, or hardware issues caused by poorly set up hardware. I think testing is a major thing for us and what we want to try to do, because at the end of the day, when we build our databases, we want to make sure it works when we send it out to in the field. We want to make sure we have real users come in, test our database out, see if it's working for us, and it is actually doing what we want it to do. So these are some tips. You can go back and you can read the article. Here's the website again. It's at www.simpletalk.com. SQL Database Administration. You can see it right there. Copy the link. Read it. It's a good article. Make sure that we don't make these mistakes and things to think about as we move forward in our careers.